Hey everyone, welcome to the Community Proud podcast. I am Dustin Allen, and thank you so much for tuning in. And also thanks for sticking around after that first intro episode. So this is the intro to the conversation I had with Coach Gregory of Hanford West High School. We talked about his story and what he does for the community, not only in school, but outside of school as well. He has just a great life lesson that you've got to listen to. And he talks about how love is just a key to a lot of things, and you just got to listen more in detail to exactly what I mean. So also just go check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube for the video experience. We'll even have some clips of Coach Gregory in action at his recent basketball camp that he did for the kids. He has it every year. It's called Life and I want to say it's like Life and Basketball Camp, and it's just a really cool camp. It's like a week long, and it teaches the kids not only about basketball, but life stuff as well. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and go like us on Facebook at Community Proud Podcast. Follow myself and Abraham on Instagram as well at Dallin2199 and at _Abe.Jacobs. If you don't know who Abraham is, he is our editor / audio producer. And if you like the content we put out, please share it with other people. If you post about it, we'll give you a shout out, because our only marketing is word of mouth. So like literally anything helps, guys. Like we're very thankful for anything you guys do. And without further ado, here's the episode. All right, Coach Kenneth Gregory.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Thank you.
I'm doing better now.
I really appreciate you coming on the pod.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. We always have great conversations.
We always do.
So we're gonna start off with just a little bit about your background.
Okay.
Very beginning.
Very beginning. The humble beginnings.
Humble beginnings.
Yes. I started out in Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Born in Chicago. The son of a military man. My father is a career navalman. He met my mother in Chicago, I believe, on a military base. She was working there, and I guess that's the beginning.
That's the beginning.
That's
right
as
there.
far back as I've been told. I don't even remember this part of the story, so it's all secondhand. But interesting story at birth. I was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby.
You were blonde-haired?
Blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby at birth. So, interesting start to the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And my father did some traveling. We bounced around Hawaii, ended up in Lemoore. My father retired out of NAS Lemoore. Decided to buy a house in Hanford. Was sold the house in Home Garden. Was told that it reminded him of where he grew up in Tennessee. So
Okay.
I guess that's where it started. Yeah,
There you
here
go.
in Hanford. 10th in Houston.
10th in Houston?
10th in Houston.
All right.
Yeah. That's kind of, I think where I guess I started finding a place in the world. It really felt like home. I mean, it's really what I recall the most.
Okay.
Interesting lessons you learn growing up in neighborhoods when people used to play outside.
Yeah.
Went to Lakeside Elementary. I'm proud Lakeside Leopard.
Okay.
And which is something I've grown to love actually over time. I always wanted to go to school in town somewhere. Couldn't convince my parents to move there.
Right. So your dad was military. What part of the military? What branch?
Navy.
Navy.
He's a navalman. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe he retired with 27 years under his belt.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, his first career.
Okay. So
after retiring, he had a few jobs here in town.
Okay.
And went on to become the director of the juvenile center.
Oh, okay.
He retired as a probation officer though. So the latter part of his career, he moved from juvenile hall to probation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So growing up with your dad and being in the military, how are things at home with that?
Very regimented. I believe I had a probably the most structured childhood when I compare it to those that I discuss it with. I mean, my family, my parents both were, especially my mother, really good at following routines, all the way down to what we ate. I mean, we did not cheat on brands. We were very loyal, all the way down to the toothpaste we used,
Really?
Crest toothpaste only, it felt like for a while, Dial soap.
Oh, yeah.
The cereal brands we chose. The laundry detergent was always tied with Downy. I mean, it was very structured.
There you go.
Which I think is good for a childhood.
Right.
Yeah, routines. I've learned that. So
Okay.
I think when I look back on it, it really contributed to me being able to follow a routine.
There you go.
It helps with discipline as well.
Right. And that was going to be like my follow-up question. Like, how did that translate to what you do now?
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. As a child, my mother really didn't believe in gender roles, which are still common.
Right.
She wanted us to learn how to do everything. So that included mowing the lawn,
Right.
which my mother also did. You don't see that often, but that's what we did.
You're the first I know of.
Yeah. And then we also were responsible for cleaning up around the house. We did our own laundry. We had major cleanup days every Sunday, which we dreaded. So we had to spend about 3 hours
Wow.
inside,
3 hours.
dusting and vacuuming and all of those skills that you need in life. Unfortunately, I kind of resist them now. But I would say it did contribute to my work ethic. It's really helped.
Okay.
So,
Any brothers or sisters or anything?
Yeah, I have an older brother.
Older brother.
Cleveland Wayne Gregory.
Okay.
He lives in San Diego. And I have a younger brother, Stephen Wayne Gregory.
Okay.
I'm Kenneth Wayne Gregory, and my father is Jerry Wayne Gregory.
Okay.
So we have the Waynes in
you got
common.
the Waynes, right.
I refer to my younger brother as Little Wayne.
Lil Wayne. Okay.
So,
okay.
the original Little Wayne.
Right.
Yeah.
Before Lil Wayne was even
Before Little Wayne was
even heard of.
Yeah, before he was,
He was the one.
Today. Yeah, the
There you
first
go.
Little Wayne.
So
and
how
his
was
little
it?
brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So how was it growing up just as that middle child? Was there ever
there's a big age difference between my older brother and I. So I really was the older brother in my house. So there wasn't that hierarchy. So I don't fall in that middle child category.
You're the older brother.
I'm the older brother. I'm big brother.
There you go.
And that worked out great. I had to look out for my younger brother. Grew up in a neighborhood that was a little tougher than most. So it was, we were taught to always take care of your younger brother. So you learn that responsibility early on too, looking out for others. I can constantly remember giving him advice, him and his friends. I would line them up and kind of do what I do as a coach now. Give them some guidance.
Okay.
So not far from what I'm doing today.
Right.
Yeah.
And so was your brother, how much older was your oldest brother?
Man, my older brother, so he didn't grow up in my household, so he didn't grow up here in Hanford. He's the product of my father's first marriage.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to say he's about 12 years older than I am. I think 12, 13 years older than I am. So there's a considerable gap in between. Yeah.
So my next question is was your younger brother then old enough to compete with you in sports and things like that?
He is now.
Okay, he is now.
If he sees this, I have to clarify he is now.
Okay.
Growing up, he was not.
Okay.
I was extremely competitive as a child. I wanted to win at everything. Usually at any cost, I was really dedicated to learning. So if it was basketball, I was in the driveway shooting.
Right.
I also loved soccer growing up. So I was constantly kicking a ball against the side of our house.
Did I drive mom nuts?
Not necessarily my parents, the neighbors. The neighbors would complain.
Okay.
I think eventually they built a fence.
Oh, yeah.
So I couldn't even get access to that side.
Oh, yeah. If you kicked it over, that was it.
Yeah, if you kicked it over, it was gone. My brother, let's say he was very small growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, he grew late in life.
Okay.
I want to say he grew all the way up into his late teens.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, early 20s. And I mean, now he's a muscle man, so he's going to give me
Oh yeah.
something for saying he was little.
Yeah.
He was tiny growing up. And I felt like I cast a little bit of a shadow, which I think caused him some challenges as well. You know, looking back on it now, I should have been more supportive, but everyone expected him to be exactly what I was. I mean, he is now and more, but at that point, just from a physical standpoint, I don't think he was necessarily capable at that time.
Right.
Late bloomer.
Okay.
He was more into fashion. My brother would wear suits to school.
Really?
In elementary school.
That's confidence.
Yeah, confidence. And he can
good.
turn a wrench. So my father would be working inside on cars, which he's really good at, and my brother would climb in there with him. I didn't have time for that. I wanted to be out running around, competing, hanging out with my friends. So,
there you go.
Even though we grew up in the same household, we had much different experiences.
Okay.
Especially with athletics. He ended up leaving, I want to say, his junior year and went and spent a year in Tennessee. So he went to live with my grandmother in the small town of Tennessee, Bells, Tennessee, and attended Crockett County High School.
Okay.
Yeah, a very small school. And my dad used to say he rode a horse too.
He rode a horse?
Yeah. I haven't verified this yet, but based on what he said so far, I'm inclined to believe him.
It just sounds like a small place.
Very, very small, very small. I think there was one sheriff that I can recall, yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but his name was Sheriff Pye.
Sheriff Pye?
Yeah, straight out of what felt like Mayberry when you think of it now. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I want to transition a little bit of growing up in high school. You went to Hanford High?
Went to Hanford High. Which was my first time getting into the city of Hanford. So living in the neighborhood I grew up in, we were sort of isolated. So we went to Lakeside Lepers that I talk about. It's just a small country school.
Right. I
think my graduating 8th grade class had about 28 to 30
small
students, And then you get a chance to come to Hanford High, and at that time there was only one high school in Hanford, and so that was a great experience. So it really expanded everything, the amount of teachers you're exposed to, definitely friends and people that I still am in contact with today. So class of 28 exploded. Yeah, so that was great. I loved that experience. At that time, we had 2 campuses, so we were still split up a little. Freshmen and sophomores attended one, and then junior and senior year, you got to transition over to what is called Hanford High. Yeah, so I really learned a lot during that time. Just didn't realize what I was learning. I think the foundation was being set, but I was a bit rebellious. Yeah, didn't take well to authority as a high school. Been coined a class clown on a few occasions, which I embraced at the time. Really wasn't fully aware of the impact education could have on my life. So I really was not prepared for life after high school. I really put all my eggs in the athletic basket at that time, and just assumed I can play. I play all the time.
Play forever, right?
Yeah, I'll play forever. I'll play in college. I'll play in the NBA, and that would be my career, which I come across quite often now.
Yeah.
So I'm able to identify myself and a lot of the young athletes that I work with. So it's. I think it all comes together to kind of help you do what you're meant to do in life.
Yeah,
and I definitely realize today all of the lessons that I was not fully attuned to at the time. But they're with me. I still carry them with me.
Okay. Yeah. And so I want to now transition a little in college, because I know you have an interesting
college story.
College experience.
Yeah. I will just. Without going into too much detail, I had an eye-opening experience in college. I realized right away teachers weren't taking roll, and that impacted me. It felt like no one even is paying attention to whether or not we're coming to class. I got this idea in my head that I could still pass if I only showed up on the days tests were being administered. So there was a rude awakening in that.
Yeah.
In addition to not being fully committed to my academics, I lived in an environment, let's see, I had 4 roommates at one time, and the apartment that I lived in was the one that it felt like everyone in the city of Visalia wanted to be at. So I think we would refer to it now as a party house.
Oh, okay.
Not a lot of studying going on.
Okay.
I don't even really recall pulling books out during this time period. So I got involved mainly just to participate in athletics, to be a part of the basketball team. And learned a few life lessons along the way there. I remember my first report card coming out and my mother telling me, or both my parents actually, they weren't gonna support this. That's not what they're helping me live in Visalia for. And I had it in my mind that I could live on my own. I think I had $4,000 or $6,000 saved up from mowing lawns as a child, and thought that would last forever. So once I was cut off, I learned really quickly that that's not enough to sustain you very long. Next thing you know, I'm out looking for a job, which changed quite a bit. I also, at this time, am becoming a father. So I became a father when I was 19. My oldest son was born. So shifted my responsibilities. I ended up getting kicked out of college because of my lack of commitment. So I was placed on academic probation, and then later given my walking papers and saying, you're not doing anything here, you can't come back.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a rude awakening. And I had gone through, I want to say 3 or 4 different majors during that time I was there. I started out as a criminal justice major, switched over, wanted to become an art major, wanted to become a business major, and never really having a true vision of what I wanted. I in reflection, look back now and realize I had no direction. I was just going with what I thought I liked. You could have thrown darts at a dartboard and picked a number that coincided with that, and that's what I was chasing at the time. When all of those safety nets were removed, though, it was a real eye-opening experience. So I remember getting a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I became what every teacher says you're gonna do if you're not applying yourself. So there's truth in that. If you're not prepared, now you're looking for whatever you can get. And so I learned to fry chicken at Kentucky Fried Chicken on Mooney Boulevard, and realized that's not enough to support myself. I had to get a second job selling cameras. So that kind of went hand in hand. I was taking a few college classes on photography before I stopped, and so I thought I wanted to be a photographer for a while. Still not enough money. I had some help. I ended up getting introduced to a union job. And that started to change my life pretty quickly. My income went up dramatically. By the time I was 21, I owned 2 homes. I was renting one out.
Wow.
Yeah.
21.
21. 21.
Awesome.
21. Yeah. I was the father of 2 at this time. My family is multiplying rapidly. Lost that job and had another one of these eye-opening experiences. Like, what am I gonna do with my life? Ended up bouncing back, finding employment, working for Frito-Lay. I worked there for 7 or 8 years, and started feeling like maybe that's what I was supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. I would say I didn't find it rewarding.
Right.
It was something that I did to support my family and keep a roof over our heads. And then one day, that job goes away. You come in and they close that plant, and I'm back at square one. Mm-hmm. What are my options? How do I support a family? Now I have 4 children. So that I never figured that out. I just kept expanding. Yeah. Where are these babies coming from? But in between that, if I transitioned back, I started coaching. So I got a call from a friend who asked if I'd be interested in coaching, and I'd never thought about it up until that time. It had been about, I want to say it'd been about 15 years since I'd last gone to college. And so let me tie this all together. I go back, so I take them up on the coaching offer. Mm-hmm. I become an assistant coach on a JV basketball team with one of my high school teammates, and fell in love with it right away. Not necessarily the coaching aspect of it, but the mentorship part. Mm-hmm. I noticed there were a lot of athletes that were experiencing the world much like I did, 20 years before that. And it's when I really realized, when I was finding athletes that were really good, but didn't have the academic side. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly preaching to them about the importance of an education. I vividly remember one of the athletes raising their hands, one of the players I coached, and asking me what college did I graduate from. Well, I hadn't. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'd been kicked out of one. Yeah. For underachieving. Mm-hmm. And, a light went off. And this is about the same time that they're closing the plant that I worked at, Frito-Lay. And I had an opportunity. I could have transferred and worked in Bakersfield and moved my family to Bakersfield, or they provided us with enough money and some support to go back to school. Mm-hmm. I remember coming home and sharing with my wife at the time, I think I want to try something new. I think I want to go back to school. I still remember that conversation because it wasn't well received based on past experience. Mm-hmm. But after convincing my family that I thought this was going to be the best thing for us, I jumped in full time. I had been taking 1 or 2 classes at a time, which was the complicated part. I thought I could just walk back to College of Sequoias and they'd let me back in. Right. I actually had to write a letter to the school president explaining what was different, what had changed. And I remember pouring my heart out on this letter. I'm committed, I'm working with the community. I don't think cared much about the words. Right. So the response I got was, you can take 1 class. Wow. 1 class. So I remember it was a math class. I share this story a lot because I ask people, what would it be like if you went from high school math, or even college math for that reason, and you close the book for 15 years and you don't touch it. You're not using anything that you used at the time, and then having to go back and start over. Mm-hmm. So I carried a lot of fear into that. Definitely scared.
So did they pick that class for you then?
It was the 1 class that I needed. Okay. And it was a starting point. Okay. And math had always been my strength. And so it just made sense that this is where I try, especially given I only had 1 class that I was given permission to take. But this time I used some new strategies. Mm-hmm. And I had a definite passion at this time, that changes it. They always say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Mm-hmm. And that was the case. I was ready to learn. I'd gotten some great advice from a friend that said, try this. Try evaluating what your weaknesses are before you start. And that takes looking in the mirror. I don't think a lot of people spend enough time doing that.
Right.
They carry this opinion around that they're given from everyone else, but really you're the only one who knows what you're capable of. So I had to sit down and write down. I remember making a list of things that I really needed to improve on. One of them was paying attention. So my first strategy was to sit in the very front. And then I challenged myself never to take my eye off the teacher.
Really?
Yeah, which is hard. People think
is.
that's easy, but try it. I struggle with it now today, but it's definitely something that really helped me. So I sat in the front. That eliminated the distractions. I love to sit in the back of the room. In fact, my first round in college, I would sit by whoever I thought was pretty. So I'd scan the room. Oh, she's pretty. Let me go sit by her.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's really not.
It's the wrong strategy.
It's not conducive. Yeah, not for the wrong reason.
For the wrong reasons.
Built-in distractions.
Right.
So sitting in the front eliminates that. And then keeping your eye on the teacher the whole time really helped. Those were the first two. The next was anytime the teacher said something that I didn't get, I raised my hand and asked immediately. I've learned now that takes bravery, because there are a lot of people that don't know, but it just takes that one person who kind of cracks the ice and
there's always that one kid in the back like, oh, you didn't get that?
Yeah, exactly. And especially walking away and coming back 15 years later, there was a lot I didn't know. So I felt like I was frustrating the teacher early on because my hand was up constantly. But what I learned is not only was I holding the teacher accountable, I also was holding myself accountable. Right. And I was being really honest with myself. The third piece was any assignment that I was given, I worked on it immediately, and I wouldn't allow myself to go to bed until it was completed. Okay. So I had to stay up overnight a lot. I'm sitting there, my kids share that a lot now. I'm on the computer and I'm up all night. So a commitment to get it done, because I was a procrastinator. Yeah. My old method of operation would be, I'm given an assignment on Monday. The teacher said it's not due till next Friday.
You're gonna wait
I'm
till
opening
next
it
Thursday?
up, next Thursday or that morning, Friday morning. And then I'm scrambling to get it done and don't have enough time. Well, this really alleviated that problem. Not only was I able to finish early, I was able to turn it in and get feedback right away. Also allowing me to correct my mistakes. Right. And oftentimes resubmit it. Which is, who thought you could do that? I had no idea.
I never thought.
So I actually had the teacher proofreading all my stuff or going over my work, or a tutor.
It almost feels like cheating, but
it almost feels like cheating, but it's really not. It's using the system the way it's designed to be used. So I never missed an assignment. So I started realizing right away that instead of being the person in the class who's constantly looking for answers or help from people around me, the class started turning to me.
Oh yeah?
So you end up becoming the student in the class that teachers trust, and your peers in the room trust. That was a good feeling, being asked to help someone else. It was empowering. Definitely built my confidence up. Even though it was one class, I just continued those strategies. So after I passed that class, I ended up getting an A in the class, and I carried those strategies. I think I was allowed to take 3 classes the next semester. Same thing, front of the room, asking questions, and same result, more A's, 3 more A's. There you go. So before you know it, I'm taking, I think, 7 or 8 classes in a semester, and I'm just killing them all, A's and everything. Before you know it, I'm done there. I've maxed everything out. And I had an opportunity to transfer to Fresno State. So once again, you feel like the little fish on a big campus, much older, which I think helped, but same strategies. So the same approach, same result. I'm passing all these classes, I'm straight A's, and I just was able to keep building on that. Ended up applying to USC and getting accepted there, continuing the strategies. And so if I take anything away from it, it really is identifying your weaknesses, turning them into strengths, and using that confidence as momentum, charge. Right. Yeah, so rush in now instead of being hesitant. It's helped me all the way around.
That's almost like if you're not good with your left hand, make your left hand your strength.
Make it your strength. And if you do that, your confidence goes up. And what are you going to do from that? Yeah. And now, at some point along the way, though, I went from being a math major to an English major.
Okay.
So that is where I think I've noticed the biggest gain. You might find this shocking, but I had trouble speaking in front of classrooms.
Yeah,
my classmates.
I do find that.
You find that shocking? Yeah. And all of my friends say I'm long-winded now. I had no problem being long-winded if I was telling jokes in the back of the room. But if I was ever asked to come up in front and speak, that wouldn't work.
No way. Huh?
But you can teach yourself anything. So taking speech classes and learning the English language helped me communicate better, get my message across. And I think it added some credibility to what I was saying and doing. So the benefits are tenfold. Now I have the confidence to speak in front of people. I do get long-winded at times, but I'm also able to share those stories and at least what I perceive to be struggles early on with students who are experiencing the exact same thing now.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest benefit, saying, hey, what do you mean you can't do it? Yeah. I can do it.
Yeah.
Especially close your book for 15 years and come back and try it. It's really done wonders for my confidence, let alone my career. So.
Okay, so after college, is that when you went right back into coaching and then teaching at the same time?
I'm coaching this whole time. So I was coaching while I was in school. So I never stopped coaching. Unfortunately, the school that I coached for while I was going back to school kept telling me, "We have a job for you. As soon as you're done, we want you to be an English teacher. Or we want you to teach on our campus." It took me longer than I hoped, but administration had changed a few times, and by the time I'd finished and had gotten an interview, the principal had changed, and I didn't have that same commitment from the new principal. I still got an interview, but looking for a job, my first job as a teacher, they told me I wasn't qualified. They were looking for highly qualified teachers, and I was looking to intern. So I remember the devastation of that, having this vision that I'm putting in all this work and, I feel like I'm excelling. My confidence is at all-time high. And it's all the pieces seem like they're coming together. This is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is where I'm supposed to be. In fact, I was looking to take over the girls' coaching program at the time, and my youngest daughter was entering high school as a freshman. So she was already working out, and we just had a plan that this is all gonna work, and I'm gonna coach her, and that was shattered. I didn't get the job.
Okay.
I still had the opportunity to coach, but I wasn't offered an English teaching job. I wanna say a week had gone by, and I was subbing. I remember subbing, maybe a month or so. So I'm just subbing at different places, and I get a call from a school in Delano, Cesar Chavez High School. And so I answer, and they ask if I'd be interested in interviewing for an English teaching job. Absolutely, I'll be right there. I'd never heard of the school at the time. I remember searching it up, going home, getting dressed, driving down, and probably one of the most fun interviews I've ever had. I sat there with the principal, the learning director, and athletic director, and we really just talked about life strategies. I was sharing where I was at the time, and I was in a really good place mentally, and they asked if I would be interested in subbing, and this is unprompted. I thought, sure, okay. And they sat in the back, watched me put together administer a sub lesson plan, and came back, sat down, and they offered me the job.
Okay.
And I think that's really all I needed. It was just another foot in the door. I remember promising the principal I was going to outwork everyone there, and I meant to do that. So I would get there really early. I'd stay really late. In fact, they asked me not to coach my first year, which I thought that's why they wanted me. But the wisdom of the principal I thought was great. He gave me an opportunity just to teach and focus on learning my craft. So my first year there, I was not a coach. So my first year as an English teacher, I really got to focus on becoming a teacher. And it was I would say, the best experience for a new teacher. It really felt like a family. The cohort that I was a part of were very supportive. You can go and watch them. Had brilliant teachers all around me. The school was excelling. In fact, I will say it's the most academic school I've ever worked at, still to this day.
Really?
I loved my experience. The second year there, I started coaching, and in fact, halfway through my first year there, transferred my youngest daughter over. Ended up taking over the girls' basketball program there, and had an exceptional experience. Just wonderful athletes, just good people. The community of Delano really embraced me. And then I thought, this is it, this is heaven. I found my dream job. I coached there for 5 years. My daughter graduated and went on to college, to play in college actually. And I was starting to get the itch to come back to coaching boys basketball. And I was at a point in my career where I wanted to come back, either to Redwood High School, which would give me my first chance as a coach, or anything in Hanford. I was open to doing anything in the community that I grew up in. And I get a call from the principal here at Hanford West at the time. It was Principal Parson. I remember him asking me if I'd be interested in coaching and teaching at Hanford West. And absolutely. I actually got the same call at Redwood High School at the time. So I had options.
Okay.
The two places that I kind of put out there into the universe both reached out.
That's good.
And I had a chance. So I had a decision to make. And I wanted to give Hanford a chance. So I remember sitting down with Mr. Parson and going over, his philosophies, and loved it. This is where I wanted to be. They scared me a little bit though. I remember I interviewed for the English teaching position first, and I was given that. But the coaching position, they said, okay, now we're going to interview you for this coaching position. Yeah, I remember sitting down for the coaching interview and walking away from that, because I was thinking that somehow they went hand in hand. And the interview ended. I thanked everyone for the interview. I got in my car and I'm driving home, and I'm thinking, I can't believe they didn't offer me that, I didn't get all the way out of town, so I was probably 10 minutes away. I got a call from the HR. They wanted me to come back and talk to them and offer me the job in person. So I don't know, that scare lasted about 10 minutes, but I got to come back. And the rest is kind of history here. Got to meet the players, I want to say, about 2 weeks later, and been here ever since. So
that's really cool. Yeah. That's a good story.
Yeah. I didn't know if that was going to work out.
That's awesome. So I want to transition now from you coming to Hanford West and how you've impacted not only Hanford West, but the kids here, and also how you've impacted the community at the same time, and also have taught the students and the student athletes the same of how they can as well.
Gotcha. How I share.
Exactly.
How I share my experiences. I think that's probably the easiest part. Once I learned that I wasn't at the center of the universe, which I thought I was at some point, come to find out the earth doesn't revolve around me, right? No, really, it really took a few humbling experiences some pretty devastating. My first year here as a varsity head coach, we had a player that was killed.
Oh.
And, I was Khalees Harris, and I had started mentorship with him. I kind of took him under my wing. I don't remember where I got the information from, but someone told me that they didn't think he was going to be able to make it. He's getting in trouble all the time. In fact, I felt like they were already throwing his future out.
Yeah.
And I remember calling a meeting here in the gym. All the new players are there meeting me. Well, I guess I'm the new coach. The players were already here and going over our summer plan. And I just finished going over all of that. Meeting lasted about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. When the meeting ends, this young man comes walking in late, kind of dragging in, kind of walks up to me. So I go up to him. You the coach? Yes, I am. I want to play basketball. Well, you missed the meeting. He kind of blew it off. Yeah. I fell in love with him right there.
Of course.
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds like your kind of kid.
It sounds like my kind of kid. Yeah. So I saw an opportunity, and this is before even watching him play. And then we decided we were going to scrimmage. And you watch him play, never played organized basketball, but just had the ability to find the ball. One of the best rebounders I've ever seen. Really had such high expectations for him. But we had to fix some other things in order to get him on the court. And I think he was open to it. I mean, he was such a fun-loving person, and the whole team embraced him. Mm-hmm. He had tons of struggles in his life at the time, and I even remember playing in his first game, his shoe blowing out, so his foot's hanging out.
Did he pull a Monty Ginobili?
He pulled a Monty, his shoe. Yeah, he pulled a Zion. His shoe falls out, or the bottom part of his shoe falls off.
Oh, that's crazy.
And one of our coaches, because he wore a size 15.
Massive.
Massive. Big kid, sophomore, big kid. One of our coaches takes the shoes he's wearing off and gives them to him to wear during the game. And a few of his teammates saw that. I still remember the next day getting a call up to the front office, and there's a parent of one of our players up there with a box of shoes and socks. And he said, "Hey, this is for one of your players." You open it up, there's a size 15 shoe.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I called Khalees in and give him the shoe. And he can't believe, how fast that happened. Then we go back to our day, get another call to come up to the office. There's another pair of shoes up there for him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Second pair. Then we get to practice later that day, and there are 2 more pairs of shoes sitting there for him. I just remember him thinking he was getting away with something. Like, if they know that I have 4, they're going to come and take one. And I remember, they're yours. You get to keep them. And just how excited he was to have something that was brand new and that was all his, and to have so much. Later went on to get shot and killed in some dispute that I still think hasn't been resolved in the Los Angeles area, and just devastated, everyone. Now I wasn't the only. I mean, our entire campus, our community felt it, and I think it was at that point that I realized the true impact that we were having on young people. And also got an opportunity in his life to see how committed and how many good people there are that are willing to give. I was learning lessons from that as well. And I felt an overwhelming call to do more, to be more impactful. So I want to say a year or so after that, I was given an opportunity to launch an outreach program here on campus. And it just took off. So I started carrying this idea of loving everyone like we love Khalees. You know, can we pour this amount of love into everyone that we encounter? And the incredible thing about that, the more love you pour into people, the more they give back.
Right.
And it's just reciprocated. So, you know, it really doesn't feel like a job. It definitely feels like a calling. It's truly rewarding. And so I just committed to helping people get to where they need and trusting in them and their ability to start to go out and impact others. And then you can see the ripples,
right,
just like on a pond. You know, it just expands. And so, you know, I'm excited to keep that going. We do a lot of work in the community. We host a basketball camp that you've been to. We call it Life in Basketball. And it's the same concept. I mean, about half of the participants pay to be in it, and we use that to support athletes on our campus and provide experiences for them. But I would say about half of those are scholarships that we give out.
Okay.
So we're trying to impact young people at all levels because our athletes help run it, and then they get an opportunity to mentor. So we're teaching the mentors how to mentor, and it's you know, it's just one thing that I think we could do to improve the world. You know, it may sound cliche. One person can't do it, but one person can definitely trigger a movement. And we're hoping, you know, we spark something in someone that's huge. And we see it all the time. You know, athletes that have been in our program come back. And we're constantly getting guys that have graduated and they come in and volunteer and share their stories. This year we had a former student athlete who is now in the Marines, special ops in the Marines, come back and speak to a group. Yeah. So and they're willing to come back and share because of the impact it had on them. So really excited to talk about stuff like that.
That's awesome. So there's this quote, I think I read it in a book somewhere, that it says, you know you're a leader when you raise a leader to be a leader. And
I love that.
And you've definitely done that. I mean, just the impact that, I mean, even the most troubled kids that we have on campus here at Hanford West, where, I mean, they're like, oh man, I love Mr. Gregory.
Yeah.
You know, that's my guy. And they'd be in like that reach center all the time.
All the time.
Just the amount of love you gave to them.
You know, interesting concept. And there really is no such thing as a troubled kid. There are kids that are raised in troubled situations. And I think sometimes we confuse that. It's really hard to embrace someone who's doing everything that annoys you, you know, all the behaviors that you don't want to be around. But at some point you got to ask yourself, what's causing those behaviors? And I think if people were able to change their viewpoint of what it means to be troubled, it really would help.
Right.
You know, in my experience, most of the students that I encounter that are having behavior issues are acting out, and they don't have support systems in place.
Right.
Really, it just requires someone checking in with them every day and consistently and unconditionally. And the unconditional piece is really important. It's easy to wipe your hands and say, I'm done with that guy. He won't listen.
Right.
You know, but if you keep coming back and you can prove it to them that I'm here no matter what. You know, I may not agree with everything you do, but I'm still here in your corner. You can start to form these bonds that encourage the people you're working with to want to do better, because now they have someone that's paying attention.
Right.
You know, I think when you wipe your hands at someone and you walk away, they're used to that. So they go back to these behaviors, and there's no one there, there's no way of correcting it. I've actually learned that the people you embrace in those situations are more willing to listen. So like I said earlier, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. You have to get them there. And sometimes that requires an emotional adjustment. You know, a lot of people don't know what it's like to love or be loved. You might notice we say that all the time in here. We love you guys. Because I think it's important that the people we're helping hear that. They don't hear it all the time. And that's another thing that we learned in the short time that we did have with Khalees. I wish I could have gone back and told them more how much you meant. You know, the entire coaching staff is committed to that now. You know, we're not going to have someone come through here who doesn't know, not wonder. You know, a lot of people, I wonder if my coach like me. I wonder, but there's no wonder.
It makes me run a lot.
There's some other things that come with it. There is that idea of tough love. That is important too. But you know that at the end of the day, that person has your back, and you can call them, and regardless of the situation, I need your help. And if we can't get there, we'll find someone who can. And I really think that's important.
It is. It's really important because, I mean, people, their emotions just like change all the time. Like something can happen in the middle of this conversation and we make each other mad or something. I'm like, oh, I think later like, oh man, does he love me now? But
there's no doubt.
Right, there's no doubt.
There's no
doubt about it. So now I want to take this time to kind of like add some life lesson stuff. Already we've already been talking about a few things that we can already learn. But what could you say to, I guess, a teacher that was, I guess, in your situation that are having these kids who were raised in these troubled situations, and they just don't know what to do?
It's really easy. Take some time to get to know them. You know, find a way. Ask questions. And not always just in your classroom. I think it's important to get out of your room and experience them in their environment. This is gonna sound strange to some, but it's important that you go and you find out as much as you can. And that might require you to go and see where they live. You know, walk in their neighborhood. You know, ask questions. Ask them, what'd you have for breakfast? What is your day like? So I do that all the time with students that I encounter. So you're going to leave here today at 3:01. What does the rest of your day look like? You know, when do you go to bed? Do you play games? Do you eat dinner together as a family? What does your family look like? And through that, you're going to learn, you know, ask questions. I sometimes feel like teachers draw this professional line where it's strictly academic. And unless you're willing to cross that line to connect with a student, and it doesn't have to be as extreme as going to their house and walking in the neighborhood. So I don't know if I necessarily recommend that for everyone. But you could go and watch them participate in something they do and support them. We have teachers here that do stuff like that all the time. And a lot of times it's unspoken, but they're creating these incredible bonds with students, and ultimately they're mentorships. I mean, teachers have what the students want. Most students want to go to college, or they want access to a career. Well, teachers have that, and they have careers, they've gone to college, they know how to navigate a lot of the situations that our students do not. But the only way you're going to be able to share that is if you find a way to connect. And through those connections, you start to build trust. And then over time, you're going to notice just how loyal these students are. Because in a lot of cases, they've never had it consistently. You know, you don't want to be the person that just comes in, drops some information and then leaves. Because that's what they're used to. You know, they have to know that you're there forever. You know, you're there. And it's not that hard to do. I feel like I'm able to maintain a lot of relationships with a lot of people that I encounter. And it might just be a couple words of encouragement. It might be going and having lunch. It might be just a check-in on where you're at, what are you doing, what are your plans. But you're paying attention. You know, you can see them. Students want to be seen. We all want to be seen. You know, and a lot of times you feel like you're walking through life and no one's paying attention until you do something wrong. You know, you commit a crime, now your name's in the newspaper, now everyone's talking about you. Well, why can't we shine those same spotlights on people for things that they're doing that aren't negative,
right,
and encourage that to continue. So it's really what we decide to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. So I would say to a teacher who's trying to connect, ask questions, mm-hmm. find a way.
They just got to take that first step and cross that line.
Cross that line. You understand more than the student. Mm-hmm. You know, use your intelligence mm-hmm. to find a way. You know, teachers are really good at finding ways, but mm-hmm. find a way to connect. Find a way to connect.
And so I obviously I went to high school here, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. and there were some times where you would see a teacher like they wouldn't be happy with the situation in the classroom, mm-hmm. whatever it was, mm-hmm. and then there was other teachers where they weren't happy, but then they actually did something about it, like, yeah. And you really saw the difference between some students liking one teacher and some students yeah. liking another, but it's just because, like you said, they went the extra mile for their mm-hmm. students, mm-hmm. rather than the other ones that, like you said, mm-hmm.
Just complain
and,
yeah.
oh wait, it's all about education, it's mm-hmm. all about just doing my job and going home.
Mm-hmm. I think once you build a connection, the students, like I said, their loyalty to the mm-hmm. teacher is so strong that they don't want to let you down. Mm-hmm. So you can actually raise the bar. Mm-hmm. You're going to see students start to overachieve just because that's where you place the bar. Mm-hmm. I feel when you just throw your hands up and you say, I'm done, you've lowered the bar and you've given the student the same opportunity to throw their hands up and say, I'm done as well. Mm-hmm. Well, who does that benefit? You know, we're really here to educate. We can't accept that. You cannot accept throwing your hands up and saying this is a lost cause. Mm-hmm. You have to find a way. I mean, you have to find a way. Mm-hmm. I always say, if you don't know, go and ask some of the teachers that have found a way. So you still have resources. And teachers love to teach, so it's not like they're going to keep secrets. You know, I'm connecting with these people, but I can't tell you how I'm doing it. Right. Get out, ask, mm-hmm. be involved. You can't just stay in your room behind your desk. Mm-hmm. You can't. I mean, I take that back. You can, but it's nowhere near as rewarding as the profession should be. Mm-hmm. You know, there's much more to teaching, and I think most teachers get that. I would say the majority of teachers do a great job of connecting. Some, it may not have been their strength. They might not be comfortable with it, but just like getting up and talking in front of a room, mm-hmm. practice makes perfect, right? So if you can push yourself to get out of your comfort zone, it's definitely possible. Right. And I see it all the time.
So I'm gonna start a theme with this podcast where at the end, I'm gonna ask like a certain question. I don't know exactly. It may be a different question every time. I just know it's going to be like a question just to wrap up the podcast.
Okay, I'm excited.
But this question is going to be towards a student in high school that is struggling to maybe fit in and at the same time having a hard time really finding their passion. What would you give? What kind of advice would you give to that person?
First of all, don't worry about fitting in. Mm-hmm. You know, the old saying, you'd rather stand out than fit in. Mm-hmm. Finding your passion, that really takes some thought, you know, and coming from experience, that's going to change a million times. Mm-hmm. You know, your path will never be a straight line. Mm-hmm. It's zigzagging all over the place. And you wouldn't want it any other way. I think you learn so much from all of the twists and turns. My advice would be, a friend shared this with me, pay attention to your energy. Pay attention to how you feel in certain situations. If it feels good, you know, if you're happy, you find yourself smiling, pay attention to that. Mm-hmm. It's really important. A lot of times we choose professions because we think that's what's going to make us happy. I need a job that pays, or I'm going to need this. I can tell you from working in factories where I was earning an income, and like I said, I was able to own a few homes at a young age. They weren't rewarding. I wasn't happy. I wasn't going home feeling fulfilled. You know, I was still empty. I was still longing for more. Mm-hmm. Find what it is that fills you up, and find a way to do that. Find a way to do that for the rest of your life. I think you'll live a much longer, happier, and healthier life. I mean, you're going to remove a lot of the stress, and the feeling of inadequacies if you're actually pursuing something that you love, or at least something that you feel good about at the end of the day. I sleep really well these days because I try to fill my day up with helping others. I think that's probably one of the best things. Get out of yourself. What can you do for someone else today?
Right.
Try to help as many people as you can and be open to the idea. I think that's the biggest gift to yourself, giving to someone else, helping someone else get over that hurdle. It's immeasurable. And I get the same feeling every time. So I would say continue to come back to your center, the frequency that you vibrate at, and then surround yourself with people that are doing the same thing. So instead of trying to find someone to be like, find people that you like.
Right.
Yeah, don't waste your time on changing who you are. You'll be lost doing that.
The people that you want to fit in with is the ones you want to grow with.
Correct.
And not just like the cliche, I guess, cool kids in school.
Correct.
You want to eventually just grow with them. And if you don't, there's another quote that I know.
I'm loving this.
Yeah, so if you take a look, I don't know exactly how it goes, but if you take a look around in the group that you hang out with and you don't get inspired, find a new group.
You should be inspired. I find that the better my circle, the more inspired I am.
Right.
And we're constantly expanding that circle with more people that have similar energies.
Right.
So it becomes contagious. I was watching Bleacher Report, and I forget the coach's name. He was also asking, what are you doing to make the people around you better? It still falls under those same lines of giving and improving. So it shouldn't always be a take.
Right.
So it's not what can I get from these people, it's also what I can give. And if you're in a group of people who share that mentality, you're going to notice it's constantly reciprocated. I give you something, you give me something back.
Right.
And you can do that forever. We sustain each other, especially our energy. Right. And don't be afraid to truly follow your heart. We get caught up in I know, in the materialism of it. But you can't take any of that stuff with you. I learned that in a near-death experience I had about 18 months ago. If I would have died, what have I left?
Right.
And what am I taking with me? Really, the memories you make. That's all that are left. Nothing material at all, or at least the foundations that you've laid.
Right.
So it's more important to be about things of substance rather than the materialistic.
Of course.
Yeah.
So that's really good stuff. Man, this is a good podcast.
I'm excited. I love it.
And so that was the last question. We're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for being my first guest, my first episode.
I'm honored.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you even taking kind of a long drive to get here. And
not a problem.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap things up.
All right. Thank you.